Prohibition in Small Bites. This is from The Gun Rights War by Neil Knox, page 110. This one is dated December 15th, 1987. There hasn't been such a concentrated effort to pass new federal gun restrictions since BATF's registration regulations in 1978. It's because Congress perceives the anti-gun lobby stronger, the gun lobby weaker, or both. The reality, which isn't as important as perception in this town, is that both are weaker. Part of our weakness is caused by the false confidence among rank-and-file gun owners that NRA life member Ronald Reagan will prevent any anti-gun legislation from passing. Part of it is that Congress is more comfortable with an NRA that has made a concerted effort to be more reasonable and responsible and willing to compromise on issues like McClure-Volkmer and the armor-piercing bullet. Part of it is that law enforcement is perceived to have turned against private gun ownership, but that's more perception than reality, for the same big city-dominated law enforcement groups helped push through the Gun Control Act in 1968. Our biggest weakness is due to the anti-gunner strategy of asking for less and getting more. Instead of demanding the registration and licensing of all firearms or even all handguns, they've been snipping around the edges, creating and taking advantage of targets of opportunity, such as cop killer bullets that never killed a cop and untraceable plastic guns that don't exist. Though their friends in media, their carefully orchestrated propaganda campaigns have made non-issues into issues, then while solving the non-issue, they carve away a real piece of our gun rights. The ban on armor-piercing bullets was the first ever outright prohibition of ammunition. The machine gun freeze was the first ever outright prohibition of any firearm. The prohibition on plastic guns, or as Strom Thurmond has revealed it, a prohibition on hard-to-detect firearms, would impact guns of the future, as well as thousands of existing guns, and be the first ever ban on possession or transfer of any firearm. The primary reason for the success of these tactics is that the average gun owner, and appallingly too many of their appointed leaders, doesn't worry about anything that doesn't directly affect him. So our strength is radically diminished when the anti-gun groups only attack the fringes because Joe Hunter doesn't realize the target is his deer rifle and his duck gun. Paradoxically, the anti-gun forces are also weaker, for a ban on non-existent plastic guns can't get their supporters' juices flowing and their checkbook open like a proposal to prohibit Dirty Harry's .44 Magnum or weapons of war. But so long as the anti-groups can show progress towards their ultimate goal, the eradication of all privately owned firearms, their support will continue. Next one is called, I don't know what this says, Dodeland Law? Dodeland Law? I don't know how to say this. D-E-O-D-A-N-D Law? Deodand Law? So this starts on page 112. It's dated December 22nd, 1987. Late last year, the Washington television station thundered about the tragedy of a young man being killed and 2 police officers wounded after he was stopped at a sobriety test roadblock. From the initial reports, it appeared that the young man had been drinking too much and tried to get away from the roadblock rather than risk driving while intoxicated conviction. The press reports implied that the police had overreacted, causing the 28-year-old man to use a handgun to shoot it out with police. After the smoke cleared and without the publicity given the original report, it turned out that the man was killed carrying 25 to 30 packets of crack, a potent derivative of cocaine. Further, he was out of prison on parole and had been convicted of a variety of serious offenses, including assault upon a police officer, burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, armed robbery, assault with intent to rob while armed, and possession of heroin. Clearly, he was one of the minority of criminals who commit the majority of serious crimes and who wouldn't have had the opportunity to stack up a series of arrests and convictions if he'd been kept away from society. With just a slight more or less flinch, either or both of these officers would have been killed. Yet had they been killed, the gun would have been blamed. Just why so many otherwise intelligent people want to blame anyone and everything except the culprit is beyond me, but they do, and they can't blame society or poverty or racism. They fall back upon the gun, which he illegally obtained, possessed, and carried, which caused him to shoot it out with police. That unwillingness to blame the person for his own acts and to instead blame the thing which he committed those acts has ancient roots. In England, during the Middle Ages, if a rock fell from a wall and killed someone, that rock would be formally charged with the crime of murder, formally tried, formally convicted, and formally executed, being pulverized by other rocks. The punished inanimate object that caused the death was called the deodand, a Latin word meaning given to God. We would consider such a trial and execution of a thing as a demonstration of medieval ignorance, yet the deodand law was not removed from England's law books until last century. Medieval England was not the first place where the object was blamed for crimes. Anthropologist Joseph Campbell cites similar customs from Africa to New Guinea to biblical times. Old habits die hard, and the deodand rule exists to this day. About 10 years ago, a Pennsylvania judge attempted to invoke the deodand principle in a case where a motorcycle gang member with a felony conviction used his wife's Browning high power to kill another gang member who forcibly invaded his home. The court ruled that the shooting was justifiable self-defense, but because the gun took a human life, it had to be destroyed. Dr. David Kaplan filed a legal brief which overturned that outrageous precedent. NRA and ILA quickly paid the filing costs, although our legal action committee told me to stay clear out of the case because we were perceived as aiding a felonious biker. The deodand theory of law still lives. It's called gun control. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals at gunwebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching gunwebsites.com.